I am Flavio Guberman, Senior Partner at Carrion Law Firm, Head of Corporate Business at International Law Department in our firm. I'm quite glad to join you again. In our last video, we discussed foreign investments in Brazil and touched upon the Brazilian tax system and the ongoing tax reform. Today, we will delve deeper into this reform. This is quite a controversial matter, since this reform, debated in the National Congress for over 2 decades, has been hindered by complex political and ideological battles. The very idea of a quite wide tax system reform, currently under deliberation by the Senate, can be perceived as one of several measures Brazil has adopted to modernize itself and to improve and strengthen its business environment, economy and even political and social stability. A country becomes more globally productive and competitive with a streamlined fiscal system, as reduced costs lead to lower prices. The savings can then be invested in equipment, raw materials, salaries, and the development of skilled labor, among other areas. The perception of a fairer fiscal and tax system directly reflects on more foreign investments. On our previous video, Considerations, we have stated that Brazil, following several measures adopted between 2019 and 2022, has decreased its corporate income tax rates, although the country is still perceived as one with an incredible high rate. It is generally said that the average taxation in Brazil goes up to 34%, which we previously clarified is not accurate information, since many sectors are entitled to direct or indirect tax reductions, both federal and state taxes such as textile, tech companies, building and infrastructure sector, machinery and equipment, transportation, among many others. But those are exceptions, and the Brazilian tax system is very intricate and contains a wide range of those exceptions. A reliable tax system must be consistent, and exceptions and special regimes must be almost non-existent and not omnipresent. One of the main goals of any reformulation of our fiscal system must have this in mind. Before continuing, we must highlight that the scenario we are presenting shall be subject to an adjustment, since the tax reform may cause a deep legal system reorganization, as some points have already been altered in the last 12 months. So, a very comprehensive tax reform is under discussion, and it is expected to substantially reduce the direct taxation. The ongoing tax reform has been a highly relevant topic in economic policy in Brazil due to the fact that experts consider the current tax system to be highly complex in all levels. Brazil is a federation, and its tax system reflects its political and social fabric. Besides the federal government, there are 27 states, more precisely 26 states and the federal district, a distinct entity where Brasilia, our capital, is located. And although the states follow the general constitutional rules, each state has its own tax system. The Brazilian tax system is composed of several taxes, both federal and state, and accessory obligations, which makes it highly complex and generates elevated costs for companies to manage this intricate web. We may summarize its problem and idiosyncrasies. Today, Brazil has a complex and an unfair tax system because it's largely cumulative, resulting in the penalization of sectors with longer production chains, such as many manufacturing products. Cumulativeness is also pointed out as detrimental to Brazilian exports, because exporting companies cannot offset part of all of the taxes paid throughout the production chain. As a result, products made in Brazil are often more expensive and less competitive in the international market. Also, the Brazilian tax framework, include both federal and state system, is highly influenced by origin-based taxation, resulting in the burdening of investments and exports and encouraging the so-called fiscal war between states. Fiscal war is the name given to disputes between states in Brazil to attract enterprises and investments through the granting of tax incentives. It is important to stress that one of the main goals of the undergoing reform, theoretically, is to avoid or finish this predatory and autophagic competition between Brazilian states, a war that keeps harming the Brazilian social and political unity. Another important problem with the current tax system, again both federal and states, derives from the fact that it's based on multiple rates, resulting in lower transparency for entities, producers, consumers, favoring a culture of litigation between political entity and taxpayers, what generates more costs and even a certain degree of instability. The tax payment and the accessory obligation compliance by companies in Brazil are managed by government entities at three different levels: federal, the Brazilian Federal Revenue Service; state, each state finance and tax department; and municipal, the municipal finance departments. The last one is irrelevant to the present analysis. Federal, state and municipal taxes are levied on each transactional event, which is associated to one or more accessory obligations, what increases costs. The reform currently under discussion in Brazil aims to address these issues by adopting non-cumulative taxation, destination-based taxation, and the establishment of three rates: a standard, a reduced one, and zero. One of its key aspects is that the reform aims to replace 5 current taxes with 2 new ones. The objective is to simplify the tax system comply and understanding, reduce distortions, and enhance transparency. As mentioned, the main change in this first phase of the reform will be the elimination of 5 taxes. 3 of them are federal and 2 are subnational. These taxes will be replaced by a dual value added taxes, VAT, consisting of the contribution on goods and services, contribuição sobre bens e serviços, or CBS, and the tax on goods and services, imposto sobre bens e serviços, or IBS. The federal government sets the CBS rate, while states and municipalities define the IBS rate, although the mechanism on which this rate will be defined is not a consensus yet. So far, 3 types of rates have been defined: a standard rate, few value, a reduced rate, and a zero rate. The last 2 rates will be applied to highly important products such as certain medicines, scientific materials, and educational services. Another tax that will be created is the selective tax, an additional tax that will be applied on goods and services that cause harm to the health or the environment. According to the latest version of the text of the reform, this additional tax will be charged on top of the IBS on products such as cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, and sugary foods. Again, the political angle plays a major role in this matter, since the discussion now is focused on the limits or how such definition may apply. The taxes will be charged at the destination as a percentage added to the final value of the good, and no longer at the origin, location of production, as in the current system. A strong motive of disagreement by the states mostly. At present, in Brazil, a product or service is taxed multiple times throughout the production distribution chain. As a consequence, the current tax collection system in Brazil does not allow for a precise calculation of how much tax is levied on each product or service. The reform proposes 2 transitions for the new tax system. The transition from origin-based to destination-based taxation shall take place gradually over 50 years, 2029 to 2078, what is perceived as counterproductive. In spite of the current federal government claim that its goal is to make fiscal burden lighter and therefore a more productive and attractive country, in reality, the goal of the reform being discussed is not altering the Brazilian tax burden. Therefore, after the reform, Brazilian taxpayers will pay approximately the same amount in taxes as they do today, in some specific areas even more, and the government would continue to collect similar amounts. The economic gain for Brazil would result from the increased efficiency of the system. The current reform prevents states from defining different rates, which should put an end to the so-called fiscal war, as previously said. With the undergoing tax reform, future changes in tax rates will have to be approved by a new Federal Council for Tax on Goods and Services. These were our considerations on this matter, an analysis made based on the current situation. Further developments will follow, and we will keep you updated on any subsequent change. The tax reform has been overall positively received by experts in the field. Uncertainty surrounding key aspects of the reform, coupled with doubts about the timeline for regulating all changes, raises concerns about the effectiveness of the final text. Moreover, we understand that the large tax exceptions that are being introduced and suggested for consideration and final approval by the legislative houses may undermine the quality of the proposed reform, as pointed out earlier. Understand the reform and its possible consequences, as well as monitoring its next stage for approval, is essential so that companies can be prepared for the new tax environment in Brazil. We always advise our clients and foreign investors to consult an expert lawyer, both in corporate and tax law, professionals that will assist you in understanding the Brazilian corporate, fiscal and tax systems. Finally, undoubtedly, if you wish to clarify any of the topics we have discussed today, do not hesitate to contact us. We will be more than pleased to help you, and we are at your service to answer any questions you may have on this and any other legal matter.